everyone, and welcome back to Barnstable this morning. Just about 12 minutes toward the top of the hour on this Friday morning. I'm Sarah Colvin, and joining me live on the phone, I welcome our Animal Control Officer, Charlie Lewis. Charlie, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Great, thank you.
So, Charlie, starting to be that time of year again for rabies baiting. I know this has been a really quite successful program across the Cape in terms of curbing the instances of rabies in wild animals and really kind of all out eliminating it from certain parts of the Cape. But of course, something that people should be aware of and tell us a little bit about the fall rabies baiting program and when it's going to start, all of that stuff.
Okay. We are scheduled to hand place baits on the north side of Route 6A from Yarmouth Port Line to approximately 132, and then it'll go up Oak Street and parallel Route 6 to the Sandwich Town line. The good news this year is that we'll have approximately 91 bait stations, them are the tubes where they put the cubes in, throughout the rest of the town. And that's about the same as what we did last year. So we're looking at probably 4,500 hand-placed baits, and the bait stations is approximately 60 baits per station. So that's times 91. And then whatever bait is left in the bait stations, we're actually going to be expanding the program into parts of further into Mashpee and potentially into Falmouth.
Great.
So we've been able to move the bait zone quite a bit this year.
Indeed, and of course that is as a result of the success of the program and the lack of instances of raccoon rabies on Cape Cod. So talk to me a little bit about the prevalence of rabies, Charlie. We know how much of a problem is it, and what are we seeing in terms of trends here on the Cape?
The good news is we're not seeing any reported cases. We do still have a surveillance program ongoing. I collect some roadkills where samples are pretty good to be tested, and we send them off, and the other towns are doing the same, continuing throughout the Outer Cape as well. And with that, we are able to determine whether or not the bait is actually working, because they test the animal not only for the rabies part of it, but also to see if it's eaten the bait and also if it's got a tidal level.
Indeed, and really this baiting program is great, and it's been going on for several years now. And obviously we take our animals every year or every 3 years to get their rabies vaccination, but you really can't take a wild animal into the vet and give them a shot. So can you talk to me a little bit about how this works and how the animals are really encouraged to eat this bait?
Well, what they do is they have a coated sachet of bait, which is liquid, on one form, and then they have a fish meal polymer block with a tube of liquid bait inside of that. Both of them are covered with fish meal, which attracts the raccoons and some foxes and coyotes and other wildlife as well. And all they have to do is puncture that, and the liquid goes inside their mouth, and they ingest it that way, and they build immunity to the disease.
Great. And how are the scientists and the volunteers able to kind of figure out if the baits are being eaten? Is it something that you go out in the woods and check on the bait stations? Tell me a little bit about how you know that the animals are ingesting these baits.
They actually put up trail cams at some of the different bait stations, and they'll determine which animals are actually eating it. They can tell whether it's the same possum, for instance, that maybe will come back 5 nights in a row. And what they'll do then is move the bait station to a location where it's better utilized. They also have there's some staining in the liquid itself, so that when they do a live trap follow-up program, they can actually pop a tooth out and they can put it under a microscope and they can see the color of the stain, so that they know it's been ingested.
Sure. So, Charlie, again, when is the baiting going to begin here in Barnstable?
October 20th, the bait stations will be filled, and on the 28th, we will place the hand baits.
And do you have enough volunteers to help you place the hand baits, or are you still looking for people that may be interested in helping out to volunteer?
We're all set on our end. We primarily use people in the office here. The other towns use volunteers. They use the Senior AmeriCorps and some people from the county volunteer. So I think pretty much they're all up to speed right now.
Indeed. And of course, the bait stations are one thing, but there are going to be certain areas of town that the baits will be scattered by hand. And is there anything that people should do or to be aware of if, say, it's in an area where they walk their dogs frequently? Is there any danger of your own domestic pet ingesting one of these baits?
To the best of our knowledge, there's been no problems with any animal that's ingested the baits, be it a domestic and or wild. What we suggest is that if one of our dogs happen to eat a bunch of them, they're probably going to get a sore stomach and they may regurgitate a little bit. They may even get diarrhea, but that's really not the case. It's more of them just getting sick, sore stomachs. If, in fact, one of our pets do eat it, we obviously tell everyone to wash their hands immediately if they've handled a bait package at all. There is an 800 number on there that one can call to report an incident. And then also we request them to call the USDA officials as well. We have a fellow by the name of Ryan, and his phone number is 413-687-2209, who will be monitoring all of those calls for the fall session.
Great. And so really, again, like you said, not really a threat to people's pets, but I think that we want to remind people to kind of keep their dogs away from these if they do see them, because they are intended for the wild animals, whether it be the raccoons, the skunks, or the possums that need to get vaccinated against rabies.
Yes, and the coyotes and the foxes, because they actually will consume the baits as well.
Indeed. So it seems like once these baits are put out, Charlie, it doesn't take long for them to get consumed by all the wildlife in the areas here in Barnstable.
They claim that they're gone within 4 days, 5 days at the most.
Great. And let's talk, Charlie, a little bit about rabies itself. Obviously, you know, the USDA and the Oral Rabies Vaccination Project has gone a long way to keep it away from the Cape, but that doesn't mean that it's gone. So is there anything that people should kind of keep an eye out for if perhaps they encounter a wild animal in the woods, or if perhaps if their dog gets bit by an animal that's acting funny? What are the signs that people should keep an eye out for that might cause some concern?
Well, anytime a wild animal's acting strange, they should just call us, and we'll go over them with what the situation is, and we'll try to make a determination on the educated part of it as to whether or not follow-up may be necessary. Anytime a pet has been involved with any wildlife, they should be taken to their vet, and if they're current on a rabies shot, they should get a booster. If they're not, then there's a 6-month quarantine for the animal, which is at home. That's necessary. And there's a 45-day quarantine if, in fact, there's a boosted animal that has an interaction. And that doesn't matter whether it's a cat or a dog. And ferrets, same thing. They have to be vaccinated, and there are some individuals who take their ferrets for walks in the woods. So they're just as important.
Absolutely. And for wild animals, and I guess for your domestic animals too, there's a couple of different acting strange. There's a wide berth of ways in which an animal can act strange. I think a lot of people think about the traditional kind of angry, foaming at the mouth, etc. But they can also be a little bit friendlier than normal. So if a wild animal were to perhaps come a little closer than you imagine, don't take its friendliness as a gesture of kindness.
That's very true. Specifically foxes. We've seen an update, a really uptake in the fox population in the last year, and they will become just your best buddy. They'll walk right up to you, and that is some concern. It could be an indicator.
Indeed, and again, more important than ever, of course, to make sure that your pet is vaccinated against rabies. And that, correct me if I'm wrong, Charlie, but that is a law here in Massachusetts that you do have to have your pets vaccinated against rabies.
That's correct. First one is at 6 months of age. Second one, if it's done within a year after that, is good for 3 years. And once an animal has a 3-year vaccination, it's always a 3-year vaccination. So if you happen to go over a week or two, it's still a 3-year shot, so long as you can prove that it had 2 shots within that 1-year period.
Fantastic. Well, Charlie, I thank you so much as always for joining us here on the program and giving us some updates on the rabies vaccine distribution, which will start in just about a week or so here in Barnstable.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Charlie Lewis, of course, is our animal control officer here in the town of Barnstable.